Hi, how are you? This is Beth McGrain Live coming to you with Women Created and Called Live. I think I just totally goofed that up, that intro, but that's okay. I am so excited to share with you today a resource that I have just created for those of you who might be a woman who is wondering if God could be calling you to start a business. So that's what's coming up today as I share with you 10 simple steps to begin discernment. And that is what we have today on this episode. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to walk you through these 10 steps because I saw that a lot of the people that have been coming to me that I've been able to coach have had this thought of, I think that God is calling me to something and I'm not quite sure what it is. And so that is something that is near and dear to my heart because that was my experience. I know these feelings of spinning and confusion and overwhelm and not knowing what God is trying to tell you. I know these feelings very well, and I don't want you to stay stuck there. And so that's why I created this resource. So let me walk you through these 10 simple steps to begin discernment. Step number 1, get curious. So it's so easy for us to, when we are having these thoughts about maybe God's calling me to something that I'm really uncomfortable with, it's so easy for us to kind of push them aside. And you might feel that Holy Spirit nudge, but you just are thinking, that sounds scary. And so I'm going to just go on with the way that life has been and not look over here at this scary idea. So the first step is to actually get curious and look at these, as I call them, Holy Spirit nudges. What do you think it could be about? So the point is to not avoid them. Really become aware of your thoughts and your feelings around the idea of maybe it's a business, maybe. And here's key, and you're going to hear me repeat this throughout these steps. Write it down. There's something about writing things down that gets it out of your head and onto paper. And when you have a little bit of distance, literally like physical distance, right, from your head to the paper, when you get a little bit of distance between you and those thoughts or you and those feelings, it can be easier to look at them in an objective way. So, like I said, you're going to hear me repeat this. It's so important to write it down. So, step number 1 was get curious. Now, step number 2, this is also very important. I'll probably say that 100 times too. Step number 2 is to set a decision date. So, it's really easy to get stuck in a cycle of discernment where you can just stay there. You can just say, well, I'm discerning it. Well, you may have been discerning it for about a year. That was my story. I think I might have even been longer than a year. And I was kind of stuck there. And so this is why I know that it doesn't have to take that long. And it's important to move forward. And that's why I want to help you not get stuck there. So setting a date when you will make the decision by this date is really important. And when you make that decision, know that you're going to go through this process. You are seeking God's will in this process. And because of that, God can use that when you're coming at this from curiosity and love of Him and wanting His will, He can work with that. So, when you have set a date, you get to trust God. Trust Him to guide you through the process, both before when the decision is made, both before that date and after. Just trust Him. So that's step number 2, set a decision date. Step number 3. Now this has 4 parts because in this third step, you're setting yourself up to create connection with God. And when I created this guide for you, I thought the best way to go about this, to, set yourself up to create that connection with God, is to use the 4 keys to connection. If you have been following me for a little while, you may have heard me talk about these 4 keys to connection. And these came to me in a time of prayer, and I have found them to be so useful for any kind of connection that I want to create in my life. And that includes taking it into a context of wanting to create connection with God through prayer. So the 4 parts to this third step, when you are getting ready for connection with God using the 4 keys to connection, the first part is availability. So that means you're going to schedule it. That means you're going to put on your calendar, when are you going to intentionally spend time with God in prayer? And it's really important that you create space in your schedule to hang out with Jesus, because Jesus is going to help you find the answers and the clarity that you are seeking. The second part, the second key to connection, is presence. And that means that when you have these moments of prayer, you're going to show up for them, and you are going to have your full attention on that moment. That means that you are putting away distractions the best that you can, and you're showing up without your own agenda. So this means that when you're entering into prayer, you are literally just being with God. You are asking questions. You are sharing what's on your heart, and you're just listening. And when you are fully present with Him, and just as I love the phrase, you're working on your suntan. Yes, I'm using air quotes because I'm talking about sun, S-O-N, tan. Then when you sit in the sun, okay, to speak a little more about this analogy, when you sit in the sun, your appearance changes, right? And the same thing happens when you sit in the presence of Jesus. So just spending that time with Him. You don't have to have all the right words to say. You don't have to be praying certain prayers. If you want to add prayers to that time, fantastic. Do that. Whatever is going to help you focus on Jesus and just be fully present with Him during that time. That is what you should do during that time with Him. Now, the third key to connection, so within this third step of creating connection with God, or at least setting yourself up for it, that third key to connection is communication. And so when I think of communication in this context, and what I did as I was walking through this process a few years ago, what I did is I went out and thought, okay, I think I need a certain journal, not a certain one really, but a dedicated one I am only using this book for this purpose, and I am not going to, put additional notes in it from my household or whatever it is. But this is my journal for my time that I'm spending with Jesus. I am seeking his will. And so I urge you to get a dedicated notebook or journal. And as was my experience, in my case, I found one that had little scripture verses at the bottom of it. And I can't tell you how many times I would have something on my mind and I would be writing about it and I'd be thinking about it, asking Jesus about it. And then I would look down at the bottom of the page where that verse was, and it would be as if that was the answer to my questions. It would be as if Jesus was reminding me of something in that moment that was exactly what I needed to be reminded of. So it was related to what I had just written on the page. It was incredible. And then I would laugh and I would think, okay, all right, I hear you, Jesus, loud and clear. I get it. Thank you for that reminder. And it was an amazing experience. So a dedicated notebook or journal, even better if it's got little scripture verses on it, but that's not a necessity. Don't let that stop you. Any notebook will do. It's just important that it's a dedicated one for only that purpose. And then the fourth key to connection, to help you create this connection with God, excuse me, is commitment. Because when we stay committed and we are keeping our word, we're keeping that intention to be with God, when we do that and we're keeping our word through action, and we're doing it because it's an act of love, really, yes, you want answers. Yes, you're seeking God's will. But when you get to the point where you are just being with Jesus because of love and not even to get anything, then that's when the answers come. I can't explain it. That's just, in my experience, that is the way that it works. That's the way that it worked for me. I was spending time with him enough that I just had a hunger to be with him. And he fed that hunger just by showing up and helping me get clarity from that process. So that is the fourth part of getting ready for connection with God, with the 4 keys to connection. So again, they were availability, presence, communication, and commitment. And then step 4 of the 10 simple steps to begin your discernment. Step 4 is something that I've already said. Write it all down. Now here, like I said, you're having a conversation with Jesus almost, okay? So as if you're having a conversation with Jesus, write down all of your thoughts about the current circumstances that you're experiencing in your life. And when you do this without judgment or editing. Don't try to get it right. And again, air quotes on that. Trying to get it right is not helpful. Sometimes it's not honest. So this is a moment of pure honesty. What are the thoughts and feelings that are really coming up for you as you think about these circumstances and you think about the possibility of whatever God might be calling you to? And so in this step 4, write it all down. Okay, step 5, ask. Keeping in mind what your primary vocation is. If you're a mom, if you're a wife, if you are a consecrated single woman, whatever your primary vocation is, then keep that in mind as you ask, what else is possible? Asking yourself, asking Jesus, what else is possible? Who is God calling me to serve using my unique gifts? Because those gifts were given to you for a purpose. They are meant to be used to build up God's kingdom. They are meant to be used to love others well. So, in step 5, ask, what else is possible? And who is God calling me to serve with my unique gifts? Okay, step 6. We're just speeding right through these. Step 6 is a little bit more involved, and that's okay. It's still simple, okay? So step 6 is narrow your options, do research, and seek trusted counsel. So narrow your options. As you look at this list of, all of your thoughts and feelings about what's going on and about what you've been thinking about that has been stuck in your head, and now it's on paper, right? Because you wrote it down like I told you to, didn't you? As you look at this list, what is standing out to you and really feels the most exciting to you? Is there something that kind of makes your heart skip a beat, or puts a sparkle in your eye, or lights you up a little bit? Narrow it down to a few things that kind of help you be excited about the possibility. And then research those few options. So you're not doing research on the whole list of things that you first brainstormed. Just those few options that really stand out to you. Find out more about them. In my case, I started out with blogging, and I barely knew what a blog was at the time. And I was shocked, and we'll get to that in a moment, but that had been placed on my heart, that maybe that was a possibility. Maybe I had something to share that was of value, and maybe that was the way to do it. So I did my research. I found out more about what would be involved. I found out about how to go about it, how to get started. I found out what kind of tools maybe I might need. But there were some other options that I also considered, and I did research on those also. And then when I brought those back to prayer, I concluded that wasn't the right one for right now. And so I settled on blogging. But, excuse me. So that is part of that step, is do the research on those few options that sound like they could be exciting possibilities. Then the last part of this step was seek trusted counsel. Now, somebody you trust who maybe knows you well, and maybe even if they don't know you very well, it might be okay. But consider, maybe it's your pastor, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's a trusted friend, or maybe it's someone who's a little further ahead on their own business journey, and gather their thoughts about, what it might be like about you stepping into a business. And now here's the thing. Don't get stuck here in this step. remember that sometimes, especially people who know us well, they have been living with a version of you for your whole life, or however long you've known them, of course, that might not be the same version of you that would be required for a business to start a business. And that's okay. Keep in mind that if God is placing this on your heart, then He's calling you, not them. And they may have their own limiting beliefs about you and about you taking on that role. But it's okay, because we can't expect others to see the same vision that God has shared with us. If God is calling you, then He has shared that vision with you, not with them. So just keep that in mind. And as they say, maybe take their insights, listen, take it all with a grain of salt, and take it back to prayer. It's just feedback, and feedback is neutral. It's simply something that they have said to you, and you are going to decide if you make it mean something about yourself, if you make it mean that you can or you cannot handle starting a business. You're going to decide and have your own thoughts about what they have said, about their feedback. And that is all okay. That's the way it's supposed to work. So take it all with a grain of salt, but do talk to people about your thoughts, about what you're considering, and seek out that trusted counsel. Step 7 now is set aside the not right nows. So I said it in sort of a silly way, but some of these options on your list, or even, the few that you have narrowed down and you have researched, like I just said, I was considering some other options other than starting with blogging. And I had concluded when I brought them back to prayer that it wasn't the right time for that option. Not that I won't ever do it sometime in the future, but it wasn't the right time. It wasn't what I felt God was calling me to in that season. So you get to set aside the things on your short list that don't feel like the right fit for this season in your life. And it's an exercise in setting aside what is good to make room in your life for the thing that is great. And this is where you are narrowing it down to one option. Of all the options on your list, of all the options on your short list that you went and researched, this is the step in step 7 where you are narrowing it down to one. And also, I want to give you a little warning here. I don't know if warning is the right word, but prepare to be surprised by what that one great thing is. Like I said earlier, I started out with blogging and I barely knew what that was. And so I was incredibly surprised when I felt that that's what God was calling me to. I really did feel like this was the answer that He gave me. And I was shocked. I was like, you want me to do what? I don't even consider myself a writer. And yet, it was the beginning. And now as I look back on it and I have moved on to other things, I see what a perfect stepping stone it was. Okay, so that was step 7. Set aside the, again, here's an air quote, the not right nows. the not right now, the not the best fit options for the season that you're in. Okay, step 8 is discern your yes or no. This is where you're going to take that one option that you have narrowed it down to, and you're going to try on your last 2 options, which is either you're going to say yes to it or you're going to say no. So here's where you try it on for a time. And what I mean by that is you're going to think, okay, I will start a business. I'm going to try this on. I'm going to live with it as if I have already made this decision. I'm going to live with it for a time. And maybe that time is 24 hours. Maybe that time is a couple of days. Whatever fits into the time period. Remember how in step 2 we set a decision date? So this part, when you're trying on your yes or your no, then this part is where that decision date is going to have an impact on how long you can try it on. So again, it's either I will start a business or I will not start a business at this time. You're going to try on each of those options. Now, here's a little tip for you. During this step 8 of discerning your yes or your no, during this try-on time, avoid your usual forms of buffering. And what I mean by buffering is these are the ways that you typically avoid uncomfortable feelings and sometimes thoughts. Avoiding any uncomfortable thoughts or feelings. So we call that buffering. So sometimes this could be like watching TV. It could be mindless eating and snacking. It could be drinking alcohol. It could be, for some people, it's even exercising. It can be a form of buffering. I would rather go and exercise than do this other thing that feels uncomfortable to me. So buffering can come in lots of different forms. Think about what is your usual form of buffering. And during this try-on time, avoid doing that, because this is a time for you to really step into that possibility of yes, I will start a business, or no, I will not start a business at this time. And if you are buffering, then your brain is not focused over here on that possibility that you're considering. Instead, your brain is avoiding that possibility because it feels uncomfortable, it feels scary, and your brain is trying to protect you. So that's my biggest tip during that step 8, during that discerning your yes or your no. Okay, step 9 is to make your choice and trust God. So no matter which choice you make, I hope that you find peace in that choice. For me, when I have done these processes of discernment, that is kind of part of how I knew that it was the right choice for me at the time, is that I would feel a sense of peace with the choice, especially during that time when I was trying it on. So I want you to remember Romans 8, verse 28, okay? And that is, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good for those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So remember what I said at the beginning. As you go into this discernment process, You are starting with love for God and that you are seeking His will because you love Him. And when you do that and you trust that He's going to guide you through it, now you get to trust that He can use that gift of your love for His purpose, and He's going to stay with you every step of the way. It's okay that it's uncomfortable. It's okay that it's scary. It's supposed to be. Because in those uncomfortable and scary moments when we take action anyway, because it's the loving thing to do, that's when we grow, especially grow in virtue. So I want to remind you also that, like that scripture verse just said, it talks about those who are called according to His purpose. Here's a little secret. That includes you. You are called according to His purpose. St. John Henry Newman says something, and I want you to listen to this because it applies to you too. This is true for you too. He says, God has created me to do Him some definite service. He has committed some work to me, which He has not committed to another. I have my mission. And now when you go through this process and these 10 steps, you have your mission too. And you are uniquely created and equipped for that mission, no matter what it is. Okay, so that step 9 was choose, make your choice, and trust God. And step 10, now, here we go. Step 10 is to commit and act immediately. Because something happens when we go through this process. It can be, it is a very emotional process, and you are taking those emotions and you're applying them to reason so that you can make a choice based in not just the emotions, but also reason. Because it's so important that we put both together, right? So you probably, as you have gone through this process, are feeling lots of emotions. And as some people say, you are in a state. When we're really feeling our emotions, you are in an emotional state. And very often we make decisions when we're in an emotional state. Think about the last time that you purchased something. It's very possible that there was some kind of emotion that was evoked in you when you made that purchase. Maybe you looked at whatever it was. Oh, let's see if I can come up with an example. Okay, here's an example. Maybe it was a certain food that you purchased, and here's a great example. I was just at a restaurant the other night, and I was out with some friends. I was on a trip to visit, and I got together with a couple of my best, oldest friends, and we went to a restaurant that I had some very fond memories of this restaurant, of times when I had been there with my family. And I would often get the same dish from this restaurant. And here's where the emotion part comes in. I remembered it just at the suggestion of this restaurant, let alone the suggestion of the actual dish on the menu, seeing it on the menu. But I remembered the feelings I felt When I was there at that restaurant, I remembered the feelings I felt as I ate that dish, and it provoked me to choose that dish again. So I made a choice based on, the memories of those emotions that I felt. So I was in an emotional state when I made that choice to eat the same dish. And yes, it was delicious. I was happy with my choice. And so in this step 10, it is very important for you to actually sort of latch on to those emotions that you were feeling when you have just made this choice. And here's how you can do that. If your choice was yes, then this whole step really applies to if you concluded yes, God is leading you to start a business. Here is the next step for you. If your choice was yes, answer this question very thoroughly. Why must you start this business now? Why must you start this business now? And I encourage you to ask this question of yourself several times, because the first couple of times are going to be very much in your head, and it's like your brain is trying to offer the right answer. But when you ask it several times, why is it important that you must start this business now? When you ask it several times, then you begin to drop into your heart, and the real reasons, the real why will begin to surface. So do that. And again, I told you I'm going to sound like a broken record. Write it down until you have like a whole page of answers. Maybe you have asked this question 7 times is what I usually recommend. Thank you, Dean Graziosi. I always give him credit for that, for the 7 levels deep exercise. And this list is really important because this is going to be something that you're going to come back to as you're on this business journey. This will be a place where you can come back to when the journey gets hard. And I can guarantee you that it will. It will get hard. And you will need to come back to this list and be reminded of why it was a must do right now. It was a must. And maybe those reasons are because you feel strongly that God is calling you to this and you want to act in obedience to Him. Maybe it's thinking about the people that you will be serving and how they need what you have to offer. Maybe it's maybe your why is because you want to support your family financially, and now is the time to be urgent about it and actually get into action. Whatever your why is, like I said, this will be a place for you to come back to, and it's really important that you do and you have that available. Okay, so now we get into the acting immediately part. Here are the next questions for you to ask yourself. What is one small action that you can take immediately to help you commit to that choice that you made, that you will start a business? What's one small action that you can take? Then ask yourself, okay, what is one action that I can take within the next hour? So you have immediately, and then you have, okay, how about within the next hour? So that's going to be your next action. Then ask yourself, what is one action that you can take within this week or within 7 days, within the next week? Then the next question to ask yourself is, what action can you take within the next month? So you see how we're walking it out. You've got immediately, you have within the next hour, you have within the next week, and you have within the next month. So here's the key. Commit to actually completing these actions. And then you're going to find that you are well on your way toward living the life that you are created for. Living that life that God is calling you to. He created you for it. He has equipped you for it. He is giving you the grace that you need for it. And this is why, because we are so dependent on God's grace to do everything, especially the hard things like this, it's so important to stay connected. Those practices that you did back in step, I think it was 3. Yes, step 3, to create connection with God. Keep up those practices, because keeping that connection with Him is what will help you receive those graces that you are going to need to keep going and move forward. So He is equipping you for what He is calling you to. Just remember that. And then that is the 10 steps. It's very simple and it can be a little scary. It takes intentionally deciding that you're going to enter into this process in order for you to actually do it. It takes intentionality. So now that you have made a choice, you might be feeling a little bit like you're standing on the edge of a cliff. And remember how we talked about emotions? This is a place where there might be a whole slurry of emotions going on for you that you are thinking and feeling like you're about to take a giant leap. And I got to tell you, all of those emotions are really good, because like I said earlier, when we do the hard thing, when we step into what is uncomfortable, these are the times when we grow. These choices of choosing to act even though you feel scared, even though you feel worried about what people might think, even though you're not quite sure what's ahead on this path, when you choose to take action anyway, and you're doing it because of love, you're doing it because you love God. You're doing it because you love other people and you want to serve them. When you do all of these things, this is part of your path to sanctity. It's your part of your call to holiness, and it helps you grow and draw closer to Him. So, I would like to offer a little bit of a different image instead of that ready to jump off a cliff. Because that, I don't know, something about that image. Anyway, I think this other image is a little bit better. And for me, I connect with it a little more. And that is, just remember that you are about to do something amazing, really amazing. By keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus, you can walk on water too, like Peter did. But first, you must step out of the boat. So this is the image that I want you to, that I like to use. You can use the jumping off the cliff one if you want. I like to use the image of I need to get up and step out of the boat into what is uncomfortable, into something that's scary. And then I take it one step at a time. Now, remember that you will encounter storms along the way. While Peter was walking on water, he was doing great until he noticed the wind and the waves around him. This reminds us that this is what we will encounter too on our way to Jesus. And that is why, now that you've made this choice and you are committing to action, this is the time to create your support system. You must have support along the way. You can do things like make a daily prayer plan. You can make sure you're getting your spouse on board. Hire a coach to keep you accountable and help you keep your focus on the steps toward Jesus on this journey, instead of focusing on the wind and the waves around you. Again, as I said at the beginning of this video, I have been where you are, and I can help you through this process. So if you would like to explore what that looks like, I encourage you to schedule a consultation. I will leave the link for my scheduling calendar in the description of this video, but you can also just reach out to me on social media. You can send me an email, beth@womencreatedandcalled.com, and we will get together and explore what this could look like for you. I want you to know that God will use this business journey, if this is the choice that you have made in this process. He will use this business journey to continue the creation of the masterpiece that is you. He's not finished with you yet. It's all a process. And he will use this to help you draw closer to him, like I said before. It's just part of your path to holiness. Let's begin. So that is what I have to share with you for this week. And I want to let you know one other really fun thing, because as I'm recording this, today is Wednesday, and in 2 days, it's so exciting. My friend and coach, Lisa Canning, is offering her Possibility Mom Business Summit. This is her 3rd annual summit of this type. And I am so excited for it. It's a big deal. And I know Lisa, and I know how much value she brings to these events. Not only does she have so many amazing interviews with a nice variety of people who will help you if you're a mom, if you're a woman, if you're somebody thinking about beginning a business, or if you are not any of those things, but somebody that you love is. If that's the case, I urge you to run, not walk, to go get your free ticket to this summit. The way she has it set up is you have access to the entire summit. She goes live on Friday and Saturday, and then you have access to all of the interviews through the whole weekend for free. And then if you decide that, oh my goodness, I must see more and I haven't gotten through all of the interviews yet, or you just want to be able to, like me, you want to be able to come back and see them again and again for as long as you want, she has an amazing VIP pass available where you can have access to the interviews forever. And there are some amazing bonuses that come along with that pass. So I will leave the link to go get your free ticket in the description of this episode. And you, again, like I said, run, don't walk. Go get your free ticket right away because you won't want to miss this. And I want to share with you that I am one of the one of the speakers that she has interviewed for this summit. And I am talking about what we have been talking about today, what it's like to discern whether God is calling you to business. And that interview was so much fun, and I think that you will really enjoy it. So I encourage you to go get your ticket, and I will see you next week for the next Women Created and Called Live. And until then, please know that I am praying for you always. God bless you and all those that you love. Bye.